Πατήρ Γρηγόριος είμαι.
I would like to ask a question. Thank you to all the speakers for the excellent speeches. Professor Larshed, your speech has been very good, but you made a negative reference to the use of pseudonyms. In our experience, in our personal experience, very important writers, authors, and poets, Papadiamadis, Elitis, were presented with pseudonyms in their books, but also very important writings of Dionysios Areopagitis were also presented with a pseudonym. And Your Eminence, we. I, one question at a time. No, I will ask the questions all together. Your Eminence, do you have any problems with the copyright, intellectual property rights? Professor Larshed.
The question is, have I some problem with copyright? Is this no? What is can you repeat the question for me, please?
He said that sometimes they use the.
Sometimes in our tradition, we different kind of authors presented their works with pseudonyms, like Dionysios Areopagitis. Dionysios Areopagitis, or Papadiamadis. Papadiamadis used the pseudonym Bohem. What you want to say about that?
It's not a question concerning internet and the web. I think it's quite other problem. But I think the concerning Saint Denis, the Areopagite, the question is very complex. You know, the historians don't agree about the reason why he gave the author gave this name to his writings. But concerning the authors, I think that nowadays a Christian author, an Orthodox author, must write under his true name and has not to adopt another name. And because, as I said in my presentation, the name is directly connected with the person, and to have a pseudonym or another name is like to have a second personality, like it is like double personality. And I think everyone has to assume under his true name what he says and what he writes. So for me, there is no reason, excepted in special cases when, for example, in the communist period, some theologians were obliged to preserve their person and their liberty to use pseudonyms. For example, the famous pathologist Alexei Sidorov has undertaken his first works on patristic under the name of Benedictov, for example, and some others. But these are special cases, and in normal cases, each one has, it seems to me, to express himself under his true and right identity. Thank you very much.
Very concise answer on the intellectual property rights. I would like to speak about pseudonyms. Why do they use pseudonyms? They use pseudonyms because they are afraid of the consequences or that will happen. They don't want to take responsibility for what they write, and they want to create a climate favorable to their thesis. This has nothing to do with the Orthodox presence, with the Orthodox face. And for us that accept or read these pseudonyms should not influence us because they belong to anonymity, because if we receive such a letter without a name, then we throw it away. So it is a real pity that the internet has created this situation. So those that use pseudonyms because of fear and because they don't want to take responsibility for what they do, they should go and confess. This is not an orthodox behavior. So if we want to be orthodox, then we have a face, we have a name, we support our thesis, and we take responsibility for our actions. Those hidden behind their anonymity in the internet with a pseudonym, they shouldn't be the faithful of the Orthodox Church. And I agree with the professor. As far as intellectual property rights are concerned, yes, to publish a book, you should have the authorization of the writer. The books that can be posted are the 70 years. All those books that have been posted by us have already had the approval of the intellectual property rights.
Ήθελα να κάνω μια ερώτηση, κύριο καθηγητή.
Father Antonius Christou from the metropolis of Glyfada. For the professor, a question. Is actually the user hidden behind the pseudonym, or do we have the opposite? That is, when the computer is turned on and we enter the pseudonym, actually our real character comes out, while in the rest of our life, we just have a persona, because I am a family person, a priest, and so on. Is this a justified view? What do you think?
There are some different cases for the use of pseudonym. As Olga Bogdanova said, it is sometimes in some blogs or forum of discussion, special forums, the use of pseudonym is possible because, for example, if it is only a question to a priest, and concerning a scene, perhaps the use of pseudonym facilitates the communication. But it seems that the main problem comes when there is an open discussion over concerning different subjects. I have noticed that many blogs, I have observed, especially in Greece, in Russia too, and in France a little less, because we have no much Orthodox blogs. There is there is much violence on these blogs. The people use pseudonym and have no limit to express not only their ideas but their passions. It's a place for hate, and this is a very bad example, not only for Christians, but for people who observe this situation from outside. And the aim of my presentation is in reality to invite all the persons, we are manager of a website, to oblige the people who express themselves on the blogs to give their real identity, or not to have the possibility to express themselves. It must we have to create, as Orthodox, a very strict ethic for the behavior on internet in order to oblige all people to have a correct behavior, Christian behavior. And, for example, all forums of discussion must have very strict rules. If you make an inscription on these blogs, you have to give your real identity with it's almost difficult to have a strict control about that, but it's nevertheless possible to have some guarantees, and then you can speak or write on this blog. In other case, not, because I think it's sometimes an example of a behavior completely opposite to the Christian behavior. We can see all the passion presented, expounded, expressed in the worst way on these Orthodox blogs. This is something absolute terrible. And I think that the owner of the blogs or of the website must themselves give the good example. I have observed that some manager of blogs use themselves not only one, but 2, 3, 4 pseudonyms, and oriented the discussion as they want, not always in a good way, but the use of this pseudonym to create a false discussion between false participants. And it's, for me, quite unacceptable in Orthodox blogs. That is the reason why I think also I didn't develop this aspect, but it is also very important that the owner of blogs or forums on the web give also their true identity and their belonging to the belonging to the church. Are they in the church or in a sect or in a schismatic movement? It's important for the blogs themselves to identify themselves or to be clearly identified in order to clear the situation in the Orthodox area.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ για τις αποκρίσεις.
We thank you very much for the responses. We thank you for the excellent speeches.